Welcome to the NFL MVP Momentum Podcast. I'm Sam Holcroft, alongside Peyton Thompson. Before we begin, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Momentum MVP, follow our Facebook page at MVP Momentum Podcast, and check us out on YouTube at MVP Momentum Podcast. So today we're going to do the blind resume challenge. It's going to be a little bit different than the one we did last year. We're going to do start, bench, cut. But before we get into that, as always, let me get into the recap of last week. Zeke is still at the top of the leaderboard with 157 points, a 129-79 record after going, looks like he went 8-7 last week and got his upset, but did not get his double down. I am a point behind him at 156 with the same 129-79 record. I also went 8-7 last week, also got my upset and did not get my double down. Sean's in third place with 154 points with the best record, 131-77. And he went 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He also went 8-7. Got his upset, did not get his double down, just like the Zeke and I. And then Peyton, you're on the bottom with 145 points, a 123-85 record. Not the best week, went 5-9, but you did get your double down. Didn't get the upset. Only person that got the double down. So that'll help a little bit. But, yeah, just another rough one.
Before we move on, just for my clarity and the audience's clarity, because I think it's something interesting to bring up, are we going to be doing this for the playoff games as well?
Yes, we will.
All right, so I have some time. I got some time to catch up.
Yes, you do have some time. It's not down and out. We'll keep doing this throughout the postseason, and then kind of how we did those points last year with the Super Bowl, like the Super Bowl bets and how Sean got pied in the face. I think we'll kind of incorporate that into that as well. So then you still have a chance, maybe, if you keep it close, to maybe win during the day of the Super Bowl.
All right, sounds good.
Moving on to the Overreaction Mondays, I'm going to start off with Zeke's. Zeke's is the NFC South Division winner, will not finish with a losing record. So everyone dogs on the NFC South for having the worst division in football. They have the 1-12 Carolina Panthers, who is a bad team. Yes, probably will have the first overall pick. Oh, wait, no, that's the Bears now. But you have the Buccaneers at 6-7. You have the Falcons 6-7, and you have the Saints 6-7. And I believe they all still play each other one more time, with the exception of the Buccaneers and Falcons. Falcons and Saints still play each other, and I think the Bucs still play the Saints as well. Falcons have a favorable schedule for their next 3 out of 4 games, I believe. So it's hard to see all 3 of those teams losing at least 2 games each. One of those teams, I think, can go 3-1. Maybe 4-0, depending if they can run the table. I know the Buccaneers have a game against the Packers. Saints, I don't remember who else they have to play, but I just think that everything is kind of favorable for a lot of those teams.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you. I think that, all 3 teams that are in the fight for the NFC South right now have a good, decent chance to finish positive if they can just, rattle off some wins. I think mainly just for this whole division, aside from the Panthers, I think it's just the biggest problem has been the consistency with the teams, because one week they'll look like a, really solid win, and then next week they'll lose to a team that they probably shouldn't lose to, or maybe they beat a team that, or get close to beating a team that they probably should have won in the end, but maybe is a better team than them. It's hard for me to say that they're going to, finish positive right now, because we kind of there's so much inconsistency with the NFC South, and we kind of have to see how these last few weeks roll out. But I think it's a very good possibility for sure.
Yep. I'll move on to my Overreaction Monday, and that is that Mike Tomlin will get his first ever losing season. Now, I'll tell you what, they had us in the first half going 7-4 in their first 11 games. But there is a really, really good chance that they do not finish with a 500 record or better. So they are currently 7-5. Yeah, no, 7-6. 7-6 right now. And tell me, PT, what 2 games can you mark as wins right now with their last 4 games? They have the Colts this Saturday, the Bengals next Saturday, The Seahawks the week after, and the Ravens. I don't think you could pick two games that are for sure wins. Like the
Yeah,
Seahawks, if they are out of playoff contention, maybe they can get that.
maybe.
It has to be the Colts this week. The Colts,
Yeah.
it has to be because the Bengals are still going to fight for something. And the Ravens, if they have the 1 seed, maybe. So like it could be those last two games if both teams don't care. But other than that, it might be tough going for the Steelers.
Yeah. So, just to get this right, they'd have to finish 2-2 on the season, right? To having win a record by one
Mm-hmm.
game.
Yep.
Um, it's just like kind of the previous take, you just never know how the ball is going to roll. I think they could go 2-2, because I think the Bengals are beatable. Obviously, Jake Browning's playing very well right now. The Bengals are looking like almost like they're not really missing Joe Burrow really that much, but I mean, obviously, that's a little bit overstated, but I think they could possibly lose, and like you said, the Seahawks could possibly lose. I would say the Ravens are probably a loss for the Steelers, but I wouldn't be a whole lot surprised if the Steelers won that game. But like you said, though, the Colts, I mean, I feel like if they're going to finish positive, the Colts is a game they're going to have to win this Sunday. So, yeah, kind of a lot riding on this next Sunday game, but, I wouldn't be surprised one way or the other for sure.
Yeah, and Kenny Pickett is going to be out for at least this next week, maybe a couple weeks after too. So
Hmm.
that could be that could be big because
That could be
Mitch
the
Trubisky did
difference.
not do the job.
Yeah.
PT, I'll let you go ahead and take Sean's because I know that you guys probably both feel the same way about this.
Eagles are frauds. No, I wouldn't say we feel the same way. And I kind of talked about this last week a little bit. How I feel like the Eagles are going to be a good team in the playoffs, but I just can't see them making it back to the Super Bowl. So I guess it kind of depends on your definition of what a fraud is, because I feel like they are pegged to be a contender, and I think they can be, and they're going to be. But I just don't have them reaching the heights that they hit last season. And I don't think that necessarily means they're frauds, though. I just think it means that they're going to be having a disappointing end of their season. But otherwise, I'm kind of 50-50 on this take.
Yeah, I know. 2 weeks ago, I said that the Eagles are the most playoff ready, or sorry, most Super Bowl ready team, and then they faced probably the two hardest teams that they faced all year and get mollywopped both games. Um, I just, it's a good overreaction because I wouldn't consider them frauds, but they are now not in the number 1 seed for the first time all season, I believe. And I just don't know if this team is going to be able to rebound. Every team has to be humbled, but getting humbled twice in a row like that, just it's kind of a scary look. PT, your overreaction Monday?
Yeah, mine is the Lions are not a real contender. I think that the season they've had is very, very good for them, very good for their future, very good for Dan Campbell. Obviously the rookies they got on both sides of the ball. I like what they're doing a lot. I just feel like they're not ready yet. And that kind of I would say most of it's due to their inconsistent defense. Their offense is kind of very hot and cold as well on certain days. I just feel like they don't really have the star power yet that they're going to need to be a real contender to beat a team like the Eagles, Cowboys, 49ers, etc. And they're probably going to still be, probably the third team in that top four when it's all said and done. But I've seen them lose to the Bears. I've seen them almost lose to the Saints. I know there's a couple of games during the season, like the Raiders game that was a little bit closer than they probably wanted it to be. So I think good teams cover the spread, and or I should say, great teams cover the spread. Good teams win the game, and they're just not a great team right now. But I like everything about their future, though. I think going into the future, as long as they keep adding pieces, maybe a couple of free agency guys on defense, they have another draft class. I think their future is very bright, and I think they could be a real contender really soon, just not this year.
Yeah, you could just still see how young this team is. Let me just talk to you about the last 7 games that they've had. So last week, they lost to the Bears. you could call it almost a blowout. It's 15-point loss where they had almost no control of the game whatsoever. The week before that was the Saints, where they were up 21-0 after the first 7 minutes and only won by 5 points, with Derek Carr getting knocked out. On Thanksgiving game, they just do not play well, and they lose to the Packers. The week before that, they played the Bears, where the Bears were winning 20-14 going into the fourth quarter, and you had to come back and win that one, I believe, with a game-winning drive in the last few minutes. The week before that, you win, I guess it's not telling me in overtime, but I think it was a last-second field goal by putting up 41 points against the Chargers, which is still, I think, a good defense. But that Chargers offense only scored 6 points against the New England Patriots, and you allowed 38. And then the week before, they played against the Raiders in a game that the Raiders played good for approximately 50 minutes, and then they just fell apart. That was also Mike McDaniel's last game. And then the game before that, they got blown out of the water by the Ravens. So, not any of those games. Like, they lost 3 of those games. They went 4-3 in those. Yeah, they went 4-3 in the last 7 games. And of those 4 games, there wasn't a good win. All of them were, like, not necessarily an asterisk, but, like, you could be like, maybe they didn't need that one.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And did we mention that they lost to the Packers as well? Did you mention that?
I did on Thanksgiving.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. So, all right. So that wraps up our Overreaction Mondays. We're now going to move into our blind resume challenge. So how this is going to work is we have 3 rounds for 3 position groups. We have quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. I made the quarterbacks and the wide receivers groups while Peyton made the running backs groups. So PT, we're going to start off with the quarterbacks round A. We have players A, B, and C. We're looking at their yards per game, touchdowns, interceptions, and 40-yard plays. So player A has 265.2 yards per game, 25 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, and 60 plays of 40 yards or more. Player B has 225.7 yards per game, 20 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and 9 40-yard plays. And player C averages 261.4 yards per game, 23 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and 4 40-plus yards per play. Peyton, who are you starting? Who are you benching? And who are you cutting?
Yeah, this is interesting. I would say it's kind of like how this is the way I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to think who I want to put as the cut first, and then I want to separate the other 2. Now, I think the thing about this I'm eyeing the most is the touchdown interception ratio. Yards are all pretty relatively close. I think that's how I did it last year when we played this game as well. In the 40-yard plays, or they're pretty close. I think if you give one game, they could be pretty close. But I just feel like the guys that have the higher interceptions here are just the gunslingers that have a little bit more upside. And I'm thinking kind of like a Josh Allen, maybe Tua as well. So go ahead. Let me cut B. I'm going to cut B first. Let's go ahead and do that. And then it comes down to, do I want the guy that has 2 more touchdowns but 3 more interceptions? Let me take C as my starter, and I'll bench A, because I think the trade-off for only getting 2 more touchdowns versus throwing 3 interceptions is a little bit more valuable for player C.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to round 2. We are looking at yards per game, completion percentage, touchdowns, and interception. Player D averages 237.2 yards per game, 61.5% completion, 23 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. Player E averages 201.1 yards per game, 63.5% completion percentage, 13 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. And player F averages 189.5 yards per game, 62.8% completion percentage, 13 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Start, bench, cut.
I think what I want to do is I think I want to start E, even though it's probably a trap. It's probably not the better player out of the three, but I just value the touchdown to interception ratio plus the completion percentage. And then I think I went a little bit more aggressive on the first one, so let's bench F and cut D. Let's do that because I think the lower yards might say that they're a little bit more conservative. And I know the touchdown to interception ratio is a little bit dicey there, but I think they may up at being a better player than D. So yeah.
All right, and then quarterback round 3, the last round of the quarterbacks. We're looking at yards per game, rating, quarterback rating, touchdowns, and the amount of times that you got sacked. Player G has 185.8 yards per game, an 84.3 quarterback rating, 7 touchdowns, 17 sacks. Player H has 172.5 yards per game, and 81.4 quarterback rating, 6 touchdowns, and 23 sacks. And player I has 208.5 yards per game, 62.3 quarterback rating, 7 interceptions, and 19 sacks. Start, bench, cut.
This one's going to surprise you. I'm going to start I because I am not a big believer in rating because I think that has a lot to do with the team around you. And also they got just as much touchdowns as player G while also having about middle sacks, but have the most yards. So I'll go there. And then, I mean, I just don't know how much I want to factor in sacks. I think is what it's doing it for me. Yeah, give me player G to bench and I'll cut H because not only is that extra touchdown valuable when it's close on the margin like this, but they have less yards and a lower QB rating and have more sacks.
Okay. All right. So I'll pass the hosting mic to you for the running backs then.
Yeah, your turn for the running backs. So we got player JKL in this first section here. We got total yards for J at 805. We got 6 rushing touchdowns for player J, 10 broken tackles for J, and the longest rush of the year for them at 63. For K, we have 770 total yards, 10 rushing touchdowns, 15 broken tackles, and a long of 75 yards. And then for L, we have 768 total yards. I think you're cutting off some of the rushing and broken tackles with that black line, but it is a long of 22 for player L. You might have to take that black bar off.
I don't think so. There's nothing there.
Oh, no. Okay. So they did. I mean, they got to have more than 7 rushing. Did I write it wrong? No. I'm right.
I think
that's
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It was okay. Yeah. So 7 rush touchdowns and 7 broken tackles for L as well.
All right. I can tell right now that this is a trap. But I'm going to start K. Okay. So I mean, he has the most touchdowns by a decent margin and the most broken tackles by a decent margin. Long doesn't necessarily matter because here's the thing is like I'm not really taking that into effect as much because there was one year that the longest rush of a season was Terrell Pryor, who was a quarterback for the Raiders at 91 yards. So I'm not really holding that like super high. Now if your long is 22, maybe I kind of put that into effect. But more broken tackles, 1 less touchdown, a little bit more yards. I'm going to bench J, and then I'm going to cut L.
Okay. All right. For the second round, we have player M, N, and O. For M, we got 331 receiving yards, 38 catches, 10.3 yards per reception, and 3 receiving touchdowns. For player N, we got 402 receiving yards with 63 catches, 6.4 yards per reception, and 1 touchdown on over the air. And then for O, we got 326 receiving yards, 29 catches, 11.2 yards through the air, and 3 receiving touchdowns.
This is a receiving back kind of category here.
Yeah, you could say that, I suppose. I mean, maybe some are receiving backs, maybe they're not, but this is their stats. We don't really know.
So assuming that he has played all 13 games so far, 63 catches, that would put him at like 4 catches a game, which is a decent amount. The yards aren't good, like the yards per reception aren't good. No touchdowns. He's getting a lot of touches.
But what's he doing with those touches,
A lot of, yeah, only 1 touchdown. They rely on him to get a lot of catches, so I'm actually going to bench N. I'm going to start M.
Okay.
Because I just feel like, I feel like this O's are probably a lot more checkdowns rather than them trying to give the ball. And I feel like the player N is like being forced it, kind of like maybe like a Christian McCaffrey or Alvin Kamara, Morse or Barkley. Whereas like there's some guys like a Josh Jacobs is just a check down. So
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna cut player O.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. So for our last and final round, we got P, Q, and R. We got for P, we got total touchdowns at 6, 3.7 rush yards per attempt, 344 receiving yards in 10 games played this season. For Q, we got 10 total touchdowns, 4.1 rush yards per attempt, 202 receiving yards in 13 games played. For R, we got 5 total touchdowns, 4.3 rush yards per attempt, 435 receiving yards, and also 13 games played.
So it's a lot of receiving yards.
The first thing I want to ask you about this one is how much are you factoring games played here?
It does matter. Because like I'll tell you right now, I'm cutting R.
Okay.
Because the amount of touchdowns, like here's the thing, at the end of the day, you got to score points. And I feel like as a running back, if you played 13 games, you should have more than 5 touchdowns. If you had 6, then I would contemplate, having him be in that bench role.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes down to this. So 0.6 touchdowns per game, where 10 divided by 13, if my math is correct, I think that rounds up to like almost 0.8.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets more rushing yards per game, not as much receiving yards or rushes per attempt. So I'm going to start Q and then bench.
Okay. Great job.
All right.
Great job.
Thank you. We'll go into the wide receivers and then we'll reveal the rest of them, or reveal who we started, benched, and cut. So players S, T, and U, we're looking at yards, receptions, touchdowns, and drops. So player S has 1,063 receiving yards, 87 receptions, 6 touchdowns, and 6 drops. Player T has 984 yards, 95 receptions, 4 touchdowns, and 1 drop. And player U has 1,113 receiving yards, 82 receptions, 4 touchdowns, and 9 drops. Who are you starting, benching, and cutting?
This is interesting because I'm trying to think in my head what kind of receivers are they? Are they kind of a yak guy, or are they more so a deep shot kind of guy? 1,100. If you have 1,100 yards, you're getting some yards through the air, no matter how many catches you have. But touchdowns do matter. I know this is a trap. I don't know if I want to take the bait. Yeah, let's start S. I took the bait, but I feel like if you put up that line, you're gonna have to be a pretty good receiver to have over 1,000 yards with 6 touchdowns and 87 catches. So I'm okay with it. And then I'm gonna actually bench U and cut T because the yards just jump off the page for me. That is a lot of drops, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah. For the amount of yards, it kind of made up for it.
Right.
Yeah. Round 2, we're looking at players V, W, and X. We're looking at yards, receptions, touchdowns, and 20-plus yards of plays. Player V has 1,071 receiving yards off of 76 receptions, 7 touchdowns, and 17 plays over 20 yards. Player W has 1,020 yards, 62 receptions, 10 touchdowns, and also 17 plays of 20 yards or more. And then player X has 993 receiving yards off of 87 receptions, 8 touchdowns, and 9 plays of 20 yards or more.
Yeah, I'm gonna start X right off the bat. For me, if you have that big of a comparison or a contrast in the 20-plus yard plays, and you also have a pretty big gap of receptions, that tells me you're doing a lot of the work to get those touchdowns and yards. So I like that. And then V and W, you got the same 20-plus plays. V does have more touchdowns, but on less receptions, which I suppose would kind of swing the factor. So you know what? I'll bench W and cut V. That was also probably another bait one. That V is probably a better player.
We'll find out here shortly because we're on our last round.
Yeah.
So we got players Y, Z, and AA. We're looking at yards per game, yards after catch, receptions, and drops. So player Y's yards per game is 68.5, 343 yards after catch off of 63 receptions and 4 drops. Player Z is averaging 72 yards per game, 281 yards after catch, 51 receptions, and 3 drops. And player AA has 87.8 yards per game, 293 yards after catch, 56 receptions, and 2 drops.
AA to start because he has less drops, and I just value almost 90 yards per game. I value that a lot. The other two are pretty close. I feel like I'm gonna actually bench Z and cut Y because I just feel like if you have 12 less receptions but you have more yards per game, there's got to be something there that tells a bigger story.
All right, so now we can find out who we started, who we benched, and who we cut. We're going to go inverse order, so we'll start with the wide receivers. You want to start in round 3 or round 1?
Let's start 3 to 1.
Okay. So starting with round 3, you started Brandon Ayuk.
Okay. All right. We'll have to see who he's matched up against here.
You benched DK Metcalf.
Metcalf. Okay.
And you cut Jalen Waddle.
Interesting. I think I'm okay with that for the most part. Actually, I think I might have taken Metcalf over Ayuk and Waddle, but Waddle's just so inconsistent, so it's hard to value that. When Ayuk, I feel like when he plays, he gets the big games.
It also doesn't help that Tyreek Hill almost averages twice as much yards per game and has almost twice as much yak as Jalen Waddle too. So he's literally the third man behind Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Round 2.
This is my sneaky round.
Okay. Yep. So let's see. Okay. Let me. I messed up the letters here, but let me just look up something real fast. I just need to double check, make sure I'm not messing this up. So, okay, this is correct. All right, so for round 2, you started, and this was a trap. You started Stephon Diggs. You didn't fall for it.
I didn't take that one. Yeah.
You didn't take that one. You benched Mike Evans.
Okay.
And you cut who I tried to trick you on. DJ Moore.
Perfect. So I went 3 for 3 that round, pretty much.
Yeah. Because I was trying to get you to go DJ Moore, over both Mike Evans and Stephon Diggs, which would have blown everyone's mind.
Right. Yeah. 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 For sure.
All right. And this one, you started Amon-Ra St. Brown. You benched Puka Nacua.
Okay.
And you cut Michael Pittman.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the
So
result.
tried to get you with the bait with Puka. Tried to get you with the bait with DJ Moore, and you kind of fell for the bait with Ayuk.
A little bit.
So
But Ayuk's not
a little bit.
Not a bad player.
Yeah, I mean it's a second career year of having 1,000 receiving yards. So like it's not it's not bad by any means. But okay, so that was pretty good. So PT, we can start with round 3 of the running backs. I started player Q.
Did you want me to read them off to you?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So you started, and by the way, you did really good on this round. This one you did really good on. So Q, you started Derrick Henry.
Okay. Bet.
And then you benched Austin Eckler.
Good.
And then you cut Breece Hall.
Okay.
So
I'm okay with that.
One. Oh, 100%.
Dang.
I feel like that's the right answer, if there's a right answer.
Yeah. 435 receiving yards? That's kind of crazy. I didn't know that.
He does have a lot of receiving yards, but when you don't have a good quarterback, you kind of just have all those yards because they can't put it downfield, you know?
Right. Exactly. All right. Round 2?
Yeah. All right. One of these you called. We'll talk about it in a second. You started James Cook.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. You benched Alvin Kamara. That's the one you called. You knew it was him, or you knew it was one of those guys. And then you benched Brian Robinson Jr. Isn't that crazy that Kamara has 1 receiving touchdown on the year? That's nuts.
Yeah. With all the touches that he gets, like
he just moves it down the field.
63 catches and you only have 1 receiving touchdown.
Yeah, it's wild. And Brian Robinson having 11 yards per reception. I mean, he must be a really good, yak kind of guy out of the backfield.
I will say that he has like 2 or 3 like receiving I think his 2 receiving touchdowns have been for like 50 yards or more. I have him in the fantasy league and I've seen that happen twice. So like those big like yak reception touchdowns.
Gotcha.
So
makes sense.
And then round 1.
So here, I don't know if I would say it's right or wrong, but you started David Montgomery.
Yeah, I'll just do that.
You benched Josh Jacobs. So you didn't cut him.
That one hurts.
And then you cut Joe Mixon.
Okay.
So,
which for how this season's going, it's not too bad.
Right. For the team situation, I feel like it's understandable because Mixon hasn't had the greatest season. You probably would have preferred to start Josh Jacobs though.
Yeah, but also David Montgomery's he's missed like 3 games this year too.
Yeah, and I mean he's been a great player.
I picked him with that. So
yeah.
But yeah, the broken tackles like just really helped there. But
yeah, definitely.
Now we'll move on to the quarterbacks. I want to save round 3 for last, so we're going to start with round 1 here, because round 3 is really, really juicy. So you did not fall for the bait here. The biggest bait was player B. I really wanted you to go with player B. So you are starting, let me double check just to make sure. You are starting crybaby Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, perfect.
And I think you kind of called it too. Player 2 or player A
I did.
Is Josh Allen. You can tell with those the interceptions. Player B, Baker Mayfield.
Nice.
You were talking about the touchdown to interception ratio though, but Baker actually has the best touchdown to interception ratio.
Yeah.
Which is logic that you used for round 2, but you also said it in round 1, but you ignored it because I don't know. And he has more 40-yard plays. It was there, but like you just in the end you just didn't like it enough.
I didn't like it enough,
You knew it was the bait.
I knew it was too good to be true. I was like, this guy with the other guys, but also, comparatively to the other two sections, there was just other things that swung me one way or the other a little bit stronger, opposed to 40+ yard plays. I think I factored in completion percentage a little bit more. I factored in, maybe QBR a little bit, sacks a little bit more. So yeah, that was my reasoning for that.
Okay. Round 2, I feel like, I mean, you did okay here. Actually, you know what? Maybe this is your worst round.
My worst round, okay.
So you started a guy that you like to talk a lot of mad stuff about. You started Justin Fields.
Okay.
And we're going to stay in that division because you benched Josh Dobbs.
Okay.
Who actually just got benched in real life.
Yeah.
So who'd you cut? Well, PT, we're going to stay in that same division. You cut Jordan Love.
I think I actually won this round.
Maybe.
Because Fields is better than Jordan Love or Josh Dobbs.
Yeah. Justin Fields also has missed a few games, but I mean, I guess that didn't really matter because you still started him. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny.
I think it's funny that I don't really believe in Justin Fields that much, and I started him. But I think as far as who out of the three I would take to be on like the Falcons or any team that I'm starting, I'm taking Justin Fields, Like it would probably go in that exact order, honestly.
Really? Jordan Love over Josh Dobbs?
No, Josh Dobbs over Jordan Love. Because I cut Jordan Love.
All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess I was meaning like you wouldn't take Love over Dobbs, but interesting.
Not right now.
Okay. So this one I'm going to go in reverse order because you did exactly what I wanted you to do. You fell for the bait. So
this was actually my worst round.
But this is my favorite round, so it doesn't matter. You cut Kenny Pickett. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll do that.
You benched Deshaun Watson.
Okay.
Now, I could give you, there's 32 quarterbacks in the NFL, right? I could give you 32 opportunities and you wouldn't name who player I is right now. And the fact that you said, the moment I knew I had you hooked on everything was the moment you said that you're not a big believer in quarterback rating, that doesn't tell a picture. You started all the Browns backups.
Stop, bro. No, why are you doing this? But
so
here's the thing though. I feel like as players, they're obviously not as good as Deshaun Watson, but the team has looked better, I feel like, with them, They
have. I almost included like record, but then that gets really wonky because it's like who technically gets the win, who doesn't get the win. So, but I think I included just enough stats to make you swing that. But yeah, all the Browns backups you started over Kenny Pickett and Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun's a little iffy, but I'm not a Kenny Pickett guy, so I'm okay with that. I'd rather start a Browns backup than Kenny Pickett.
All right. Well, that wraps up our overreaction, or no, not overreaction, the blind resume challenge. Now we'll go through our upsets, double downs, and picks real fast. Zeke's upset of the week. I'm going to look over here now. He's going with the Broncos over the Lions, and a lot of these we are agreeing on this week, so these can go rather quick. Peyton, you and I are going with the Lions. They're going with the Broncos here. The Broncos are one of the hottest teams in the NFL. I think winning 6 of their last 7. In fact, beating the Chargers pretty handily. The Lions, we were just talking earlier, aren't looking the greatest, but I just think that this is a very important win for the Lions because the Vikings are getting close to them.
Yeah, I feel like also it's just at this point the Lions feel like they're kind of back against the wall because they kind of feel themselves, I guess trailing behind where they thought they would be at a little bit, and I feel like they're kind of trying to play catch up with their expectations of how and ultimately thought they were going to end the season. So they're going to have to start winning some games in the end here to get back to where they want to be at.
My upset of the week, I'm going with the Raiders over the Chargers. Raiders have fallen to the last place in the division. Again, PTU and I are going with the Raiders, and Zeke and Sean are going with the Chargers. I just feel like this Raiders team, like they're moving in the right direction with an interim head coach, which is really hard to say. But they just didn't have a good offensive game. Didn't have good game planning against the Vikings. But the Chargers, the Brandon Staley's job is on the line. If they lose this, he has to be fired. Like this, I've been saying this for 5 weeks now. He has to be fired if they lose this game. So maybe he just makes that one coaching mistake that he's done that's ended the Chargers seasons each of the last 2 years, and it finally happens.
Yeah, I got three keys of this game why I think the Raiders are going to win. One, you got Justin Herbert out. I don't think this team is anywhere close to being ready to play without him. He's probably their best player. He's been their most consistent player throughout the season. I mean, he's really the one that gives them a chance to win every single week. The Raiders are at home, so that always helps the Raiders because I feel like they're a much better team at home. At least they're, how they play is a lot more gritty. And that kind of leads into my third point. I feel like the Raiders are just a lot more gritty and, I don't want to say dirty, but they're just kind of dogs. I think they're going to want to win it a lot more. And then whenever I watch this Chargers team, they just play really soft, especially at away games. So yeah, I got the Raiders winning.
Sean's upset of the week. He has the Colts over the Steelers. This is mostly just because of the seeding wise. But we all are going with the Colts here. We don't believe in Mitch Trubisky. And another reason why I had my overreaction Monday that the Steelers are not going to win 2 of their next 4 games.
Yeah, I feel like the Colts are kind of been very steady, whereas the Steelers are just very up and down, and losing their starting quarterback and getting a quarterback that probably honestly shouldn't really be in any position to play an NFL game right now. Is who they're rolling with, and the Colts got Jonathan Taylor back, so and Zach Moss has played very well.
Peyton, your upset of the week?
Yeah, I got Ravens over Jaguars. I just feel like obviously Trevor Lawrence is probably going to be a little bit more healthy this game than last game, but I feel like the Ravens are going to have pretty firm control of this game because they're going to know what the Jaguars are going to want to do on offense. It seemed like last week the Jaguars really reeled on offense, didn't really know what they wanted to do. Obviously, Trevor's mobility was up in question. And I feel like Lamar is going to have a really good game against this Jaguars defense as well. So I think the Ravens will win this one.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a good game for the Ravens to separate themselves away from the rest of the pack, because then they'll have 2 more wins over the Chiefs. They'll have at least 2 more wins over the Jaguars. The Dolphins, I think, are going to be a game behind. So it really kind of just separates them in the field a little bit more if they win this game. Whereas this is an important game for the Jaguars, because then they can be right back up there to fighting for that top 3, because then they'd be ahead of the Chiefs still. So, but we all have the Ravens going there. Zeke's double down for the week. He has the 49ers over the Cardinals. The Cardinals just haven't been playing well as of late. And the 49ers, first team in the NFL to clinch a playoff spot. And, the division can come, I think, almost any week. If they win and the Rams and the Seahawks both lose, I think they win the division. So they definitely have a great opportunity to get that done.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And I just want to add that I think that they still think they have a chance at the 1 seed if the Eagles keep underperforming as well. So I think they're kind of trying to chase that as well. That bye would be very helpful for a team that really needs to stay healthy if they want to have a long run.
Exactly. My double down for the week is the Saints over the Giants. The Giants are just fortunate enough that they beat the Packers this last week. But the Saints, they got a fire under their butt. They gotta get going, get some wins going, because their road, I think, is probably the toughest between them, the Falcons, and the Bucks, and they know that the Falcons have the easiest. So they need to win their important games and hope that it comes down to a tiebreaker with the Falcons. I think in Week 18, I think they play. So they definitely are going to be trying to win this game. And Derek Carr is healthy, and they looked pretty good against the Panthers, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, if they know they have a chance to still win this division with Derek Carr at the helm, but this is going to be a game that they're going to have to win if they want to have a chance to do that. Like you said, they're going to have a chance to play the Buccaneers again, a chance to play the Falcons in the last week of the season. So, they can still do it, and they're going to know they can, but this is going to have to be a game they're going to have. Whereas the Giants, I think they kind of know what their impending doom is this season, and they're just trying to play hard.
Sean's double down of the week is the Chiefs over the Patriots. I'm going with the Chiefs as well, but just more so because the Patriots are bad rather than the Chiefs are good. Last week I went with the Chiefs over the Bills because I said the Chiefs can't have two bad games in a row, right? Isn't that what I said? Yeah, because they
Yeah,
lost to the
yeah, you did.
Packers, they lost to the Bills, and it happened.
Yeah.
They lost. They didn't play good, including that ending. But I still got to go with the Chiefs. This Patriots team. They got to just start after beating the Steelers last week. Congrats, you got to win. But what for? Like fight for the second overall pick, third overall pick.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with everything you said. Not only are the Patriots really bad, but I just don't see the Chiefs losing 3 games in a row to an inferior opponent than with the Patriots. And I think they're going to come out playing angry as well.
Yep. And then PT, you're double down.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, it's just one of those classic cases where I think the Jets are really bad. The Dolphins shouldn't have lost that game yesterday on Monday Night Football. And they're going to have to start winning some games if they want to keep up this steam because I feel like these last, what is it, 3, 4 weeks, they've just been so inconsistent. And they've been giving up some games that they should have won. And it's just not a good recipe if you want to have playoff aspirations. I know Tyreek Hill got a little bit banged up yesterday. I'm not certain that he's going to play. But whether he plays or not, I feel like his offense is good enough to beat a Jets team that, although the defense is still pretty good, it's like how many times can you allow the offense to give the ball back and have the defense on the field? Because that's exactly what happened against the Falcons, and the Falcons were able to take advantage with a much worse quarterback and a team that doesn't really utilize its weapons versus Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert getting off.
Yeah, this team played only I think 3 weeks ago on a cold Black Friday game in New York, and Miami won by 21 points. I expect the Miami to do the same thing here in Miami. So, and we all agreed with the Dolphins there. So that wraps up the upsets and double downs. We'll just go into the rest of our picks. We all have the Bengals beating the Vikings. PT, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals have looked really good. Like I said before when we were doing our blind resume, Jake Browning's played very well. I think you and me both. I mean, it matters a little bit less to you now, but I just wish that Jamar Chase was a little bit more involved in this offense. I mean, but they're finding guys. They're finding guys that you wouldn't have thought would have been a guy with Joe Burrow. They're not force feeding guys, which is good. And I think Joe Mixon's getting a little bit more work in the backfield. Their defense has looked a little bit more stout. And so as long as Jake Browning is playing well, I think they have a shot to win a lot of the games that they play in.
Definitely, I 100% agree. The Bears Browns, someone's disagreeing here. And PT, you and I and Sean are going with the Browns, and Zeke's actually going with the Bears. It makes no sense for the Bears to try to win this game other than, just morale. But, they don't care about their draft stock because they know that they are going to get the first overall pick with the Panthers. But I just think that the Browns have just been looking too good, even though they're winning games that they shouldn't with backup quarterbacks. But I trust the Browns with this one.
Yeah, me too. I mean, Whether the Browns are fully healthy or not, Deshaun or the backups or Nick Chubb and the backups, Kareem Hunt had a good game last week. It just seems like, Kevin Stefanski is a really good offensive play caller. It doesn't really matter who his personnel is. Obviously, you want your starters in there. But it's one of those teams that's going to have a dependable defense. It's going to have good play calling. So they're going to be consistent. I can't really say that about the Bears.
Yep. The Buccaneers Packers, one person is disagreeing there as well. And it looks like that's going to be Sean. So you, me, and Zeke are going with the Buccaneers, and Sean is going with the Packers. I think now that the Buccaneers are in front of that division, I think it is their spot to lose. So they need to go up to Lambeau and take care of business because this is a tough game. This is the toughest game that any of the teams are facing. Like the Saints have the Giants, Falcons have the Panthers, and they have the Packers. That's definitely the toughest team out of the three. So they need to get, if they win this game, their chances of winning the division, I feel like, go up probably about 10%.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if they win this game, I think their playoff odds are around 65, 70%. Because then obviously they're going to play the Saints again. I don't remember if they have the Panthers again or not. I'd have to look at their schedule, but yeah, I mean, like you said, Packers just are not as good, or I don't want to say as good. They're just not as talented as the Buccaneers. I think, especially offensively when you still have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin had that crazy catch down the game. Rashad White had some really big plays, really big drives. I just feel like offensively they weren't really clicking last week, and this is a game where they're going to be able to click a lot better.
Yeah, and it looks like the Buccaneers play the Panthers in the last week of the season.
There you go.
So next is the Texans Titans, and we all agree that the Texans are going to win this game. PT, you can take this one.
Yeah, I feel like the Texans are going to have a really good bounce back plan. Obviously, they wanted to win that last week, but unfortunately, they couldn't get it done. The Titans kind of having the flip side. I would say they weren't expecting to win when they were, down. Should have been 10. I think it was 10, 7 or 10, anyways. They were down within the last 5 minutes, and they probably thought they weren't going to have a shot to win. They end up winning against a good Dolphins team. And then, although they're feeling confident, I feel like this is a game that's going to kind of take them back down to reality a little bit. And yeah, I just don't think they're going to be able to take this one.
Yep, I agree. Falcons Panthers, we all agree here that your Falcons are going to lose. Oh, wait, no, just kidding. We all got the Falcons winning. The game against the Buccaneers was just such disheartening. It's another just close loss that, the Falcons had control of, you could say, with the last 5 minutes of the game. Like you could say for a lot of the games that they've had this season. But the Panthers is a really good tune-up game to get back to 500 and then have your last 3 games of the season. And, simultaneously that Packers-Buccaneers game is going on, because if you see that the Bucs are losing, then, division can be yours once again.
Yeah. Yeah. And, kind of on the flip side, I mean, I agree with everything you said, but on the flip side, that if the Buccaneers win the game on Sunday, you pretty much have to win this game because you can't afford to not have the tiebreaker and lose against the Panthers in a game that you should win. But I mean, it's just so tough, man, because all season I feel like the Falcons, for some reason, lose games that they should have won. I mean, obviously the Buccaneers, good team. Commanders, I won't totally, say that was a team we should have beaten, but got to beat the Vikings with Josh Dobbs not knowing how to play. We got to beat Will Levis in his first start of the season, or first start of his career. And this kind of plays into that, but I just think that the Panthers are so bad that it's not really going to matter ultimately.
Yeah. Commanders Rams, only one person is disagreeing here. And PT, that's you.
Yeah.
With Zeke, Sean, and I going with the Rams, I'll let you go first for the Commanders.
Yeah, I feel like Sam Howell might really be a guy. I really like how he's played this season overall. Of course, I feel like sometimes he'll be a little bit turnover prone, but when you have the kind of offensive line that the Commanders have this season, you kind of just have to throw it up sometimes. And I feel like the upside with the Commanders is just a little bit higher than the Rams. I feel like the Rams can have a very good, kind of at their own pace kind of offense, but the Commanders have a really boom or bust offense. They're either they're either scoring 3.5 or they're scoring 21. And I just don't think that the Rams are going to be able to keep up if the Commanders have a good offensive game here.
Yeah, so I'm going with the Rams here because they have played some pretty good football, I'd say, as of late. Last week who did they play? They played the Ravens and took them to overtime, which right now the Ravens look like they could be a Super Bowl team, at least from the AFC.
Easy.
The week before, what? From the AFC.
Don't give Lamar Jackson any
Chill.
credit.
Stop. Yeah, I'm not doing that. That's why I said the Ravens, not Lamar.
Yeah.
They faced the Browns and took care of business that week. Let's see, and then was it this game against the Seahawks? No, not that. And then they beat the Cardinals, and then they also beat the Seahawks. So they're on a nice little streak here of winning some games. I don't expect that to end this week to the Commanders, who should probably just be tanking for better draft stock. Second to last is Cowboys Bills. We all have the Cowboys. After the dismantling of the Eagles, it's really hard to see the Cowboys lose a game to the Bills like this, but maybe that's just the Cowboys fashion. I'm not entirely sure. This could be very much a trap game. They're riding the high. They're on top of the division. And then they just go out and lose to the Bills. I could very much see it happening, but I'm still going with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I could see that too, actually. It'd be a very Dallas thing to do. But, like you said, I feel like this team is just kind of rolling on a high right now. They're going to want to keep this momentum. Dak's played, so well this season. I think you could make a debate this is his best season in the NFL in his career. And obviously CD Lamb has been huge for them. Tony Pollard's been the starter they needed. Jake Ferguson has been a good tight end for them, and I really feel like this defense is going to give the Buffalo Bills a big problem to deal with on Sunday.
Yep. And then the last game is the Eagles and Seahawks. I'll let you take that. We all went with the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, after the Eagles lose to a division rival, they're gonna want to get that taste out of their mouth pretty quickly. And I don't think the Seahawks are going to be the team that's going to be able to take down how much talent the Eagles have, especially on offense. So I mean, I think it's a pretty simple reason. I just feel like the Eagles are going to be able to take this pretty handedly because they're just going to want to get that win that much more than the Seahawks will.
Yep. 100% agree. So, all right. So that wraps up our podcast for the day. Real fast, I'm going to just go over with all of the guys that we started and benched. Any reactions where you're like, you know what, maybe I should have changed something up, or are you still pretty confident with everyone you picked?
I think I probably would have started Metcalf, honestly, over the other two. And I think if we're talking about just a player, I would start Deshaun Watson in that third group. But everything
Okay.
else I'm okay with.
Yep. I'm surprised you didn't put your boy Bijan in there at all. I was going through and I'm like, okay, so which one could be Bijan? That's what I thought. That's what I was thinking in my head. I'm
Oh,
like, because I'm gonna be trying to start Bijan.
no, definitely. It's just that the stats he has this season, I don't think tell a good story of the kind of talent he is. And it just didn't match up well enough in these three sections.
Yeah, true. But is there anything else you need to add?
No, I mean, do you have any regrets? Would you do anything else?
I don't think I would really do anything else. I think that I picked mine pretty good. I still kind of stand by, even though I was looking at some of these, like, I mean, starting James Cook over Kamara could be 50-50.
Hmm.
I just didn't value the catches, the receiving touchdowns ratio. I mean, 1 to 63, that's like, that's not even 2% of your catches or touchdowns, where, you know,
Right.
that's almost like 10%, is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. But starting Henry, benching Eckler, cutting Brees Hall, that's kind of what I would do, even though I'm not big on Eckler this year. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but Once again, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Momentum MVP. Follow our Facebook page at MVP Momentum Podcast, and check us out on YouTube at MVP Momentum Podcast. I've been Sam Holcroft.
I'm Peyton Thompson.
Thanks for listening.